the Tradebusters. Hope you're all doing really well. You've got me on my own until Legdog finishes work or whatever Legdog's doing with his life. I think he's scheduled to join us about 6:30. But here we are. We've got a lot to discuss. We've got a few diddly trades going through. So let's take a look. Obviously, the first one to go through this afternoon, this crocodile done deal. We're not counting the Paddy Dow trade. We reported that yesterday. That's old news before anyone says that was the first trade to get done. Ivan Soldo, the big dog himself, finds a new home, moving from Port Adelaide for pick 50. And it was a swap of a plethora, I think it's plethora of picks, 41, 49, future second tied to Sri Mandel, and a future fourth from Port Adelaide. So, I mean, that's a pretty well-rounded deal as you all come in. G'day, Josh. He has indeed. We've got him on here. Hey, Andy, AFL is more predictable than a book you've already read. Evening, mate. G'day, Brandon. How are you? Matt says he will be. You need some positive news? Well, come on to Collingwood, no doubt. But, I mean, this trade's a no-brainer. Chat, you've got a challenge today. I want you to alert me if any trades go through. I've got loads of notifications up, so I'll find it out. But, I mean, this deal here, I mean, it's one of them. I think Richmond have done well out of it, but I think, you know, with Scott Lycett now becoming a delisted free agent, they've said Solder probably got a lot of scope to get better. He's going to be the primary ruckman there. So I'm looking forward to how this trade plans out. This is one of them where it's not great business on paper because obviously Solder's a bit of an unknown. But I think long-term, this will work out all right. And I think Richmond there, a bit of nothing picks today, right? Nothing picks. But, I mean, I reckon that 301 will be there. Here's Mr. Legdog. Kiala.
Quick.
Kiala, how are you?
What's happening, community? What's happening, chat? What's happening, Pom?
Well, we're just talking about this trade. I was just saying that this is one of them trades that might look others on paper, but I reckon this is probably one that benefits Port more. I think Soldo's now going to be the primary ruckman, so probably gets to showcase his wares as opposed to being the legs for Mr. Nankervis.
Yeah, it was an interesting deal. I'm in the camp of if I'm Richmond, I take this and run, getting 41, 49 and Freo's future second, which could be around, well, let's be generous and call it 25. I would take that and run. But equally, I like it for Port Adelaide, who clearly don't want to play. They don't want Lycett. They went for, well, they've also brought in Jordan Sweet, who is good, but he's not Ivan Soldo. And you might even be able to play them both in the same team, in play Soldo as a TDK role. So I actually like it. I like it for both parties. I think Soldo has massive upside, particularly if you're playing fantasy next year.
Well, I mean, there it goes. I mean, you've just probably set everyone's DMs in our league perfaffle. Everyone's going to be throwing multiple firsts at Soldo. But yeah, I mean, I agree with Kai as well. You get free stabs that finds it. I'm going to be a caveat. I'm not a huge fan of Soldo, but I think it'll be interesting to see how him and Sweetie go, because both of them now are going to get the stab at primary ruckman. It is alluded that Soldo has been promised that as part of his trade, that he's going to be the main ruckman. So I mean, it's going to be one of them ones that time will tell. But the Panty Pigler deal, it went through. They got a bit more excited than I did with picks. You know what, though? There's two stories to this. One, a lot of future firsts are trading hands, right? So what worries me about that is genuinely when we see that AFL, and I said this last year, when a lot of future seconds and thirds started getting switched around, that don't believe the hype about the draft next year, right? And it's turned out that even though everyone was saying this draft was going to be a super draft this time last year, in reality, it's panned out the way that I predicted, that the first 20 talents are probably good. Then after that, you throw a blanket over them. Seems to be a lot of trades, but this trade here, I think, is just a testament to Hawthorn and Collingwood in the terms of how easy they are to deal with. It might have shocked many people, Ginny leaving, but I mean, I think this is a great fresh start for Ginny. It's going to be the first choice small forward, one of the first choice guys. And with Schultz coming in, you'd say his chances are even harder now to break into the Collingwood side.
Well, yeah, for sure. I like this this is interesting because ultimately the trade gets done for not a whole lot. Basically what you said yesterday on the show, Pom. I probably, after talking about it last night, because we talked about, or a couple of days ago when Brockman left, and I sort of said he wasn't a massive loss to Hawthorn. And then I was looking through their depth chart today, and I was like, they've only really got Moore and Bruce, who's quite old, and Fergus Green as a bit of a hybrid. There's an opportunity for Gideon here to become a really solid contributor. I do think it's one of the easiest positions you can find in the draft, but I think he's definitely got upside. So, kudos to you for getting the panty peeler right.
Mate, when you've been doing this as long as me, you could just read through the AFL script and just know. It looks like a gift. It's just that I read far too much to be able to predict the future. It's probably more of a reflection on how terrible my hobbies are. And it might be time to get a new one. But I like this deal for both parties. I really do. And I agree with Kai. Again, next year is a compromised draft. So teams seem to be trading out of it. It's going to be a very interesting one with this. But I do think Ginny is a now signing. He's the perfect age for Hawks. And if they can get him right, he could be the Chad Wingard that they've always dreamed.
Yeah, he could be. I guess, right, they wanted a lot from Wingard, who was always a bit in and out. He had a couple of good years. Now, obviously, he's injured. And I doubt he might play one or two farewell games, but he doesn't seem like a long-term prospect. But yeah, I think this fits the age profile really well for them. We like their list. We like the age brackets. This injects someone 10 years younger, more than 10 years younger than Wingard and Bruce into the pecking order, and really solid. Really like it. He could be, I think he's going to play as a small forward, but I think there's scope for him to do other things as his career progresses.
They did flirt with him in the midfield when he played a couple of VFL games. So could be an interesting one. Could be an interesting one, old Ginny, if he gets that pinch hit role. But Ruckman became the flavour of the week, right? The flavour of the week. We've waited what feels like an eternity, and suddenly Ruckman are just going left, right, and centre. Jordan Sweet, pick 50. You know what? Finally, credit to Port and the Doggies for finally valuing a player, and instead of fanning about with 8 pick swaps just to get to the value, just doing it straight heads up. I rate that, because that has been a new AFL thing the last 2 years. They get really intricate with stupid pick swaps, and you're like, just trade the normal pick, boys.
It's funny because we used to talk about player for player trades not existing, and now a player for a pick trade doesn't exist. You have to add in all the swaps and the steak knives and that sort of stuff. I'm a big Jordan Sweet fan. I think the Bulldogs, even though they had Tim English, they always looked good with him in there, and he's very good at state level. I wanted him to come over and get the number one job at Port Adelaide personally. Again, probably fantasy related because it'll cost you nothing in salary cap games. But I think he has something to contribute. I think he's probably your Mark Pitnet, if we're talking Carlton, Mark Pitnet type player, whereas Soldo's more of your TDK type player. I think there's a world where they might trial both of them, and I can see them playing Soldo as I said last night, as a forward at times when Charlie Dixon's unavailable. And I think they're probably preparing for that eventuality next year. And this is a very solid, mature age, backup ruck that can come in. He's probably kicking himself because he thought he was going to get a plum job, but he's certainly a step up between sort of your Hayes and your Vizintinis and that sort of player.
Mate, I agree, and it gives them. I mean, to answer your question, Says. I mean, it's a fair question. He's only played 10 AFL games. He's 25 years old. I mean, he's not getting any younger. A rookie draft pick, interesting enough. Do you know what I mean? The rookie picks don't get enough love. Everyone always scoffs at them, but you'll be surprised how these guys always seem to be a trade into the main draft, which technically is an upgrade, I suppose. But I agree with your let dog. I think he adds a bit of challenge. I mean, they've got some young rooks there as well. And this will be an interesting one. Do you know what I mean? I think this is an interesting one. It covers the base, and Scott Lycett, he's off. And this is the trade I really want to get stuck into, because this is what fucks me off about AFL. All right. So it's been openly reported, and Port yesterday were quite adamant that it was Geelong who were pissing about. It wasn't them. The message yesterday was 25 has been on the table for Attilio, but they keep changing what they want as the additionals. Now, to find out that this trade has been ongoing for 7 days, for Geelong to evidently be haggling over the two most banter picks in the history of AFL, just shocks me. Like, I was expecting something a little bit more exciting when I saw 76 and 94. I was expecting maybe a second for a third or something like that. Fair play to Geelong. They are becoming the new Essendon.
Mate, Andrew Mackie, the GOAT, the champion. By the way, final thought on Jordan Sweet. Had like 12 games of 40 to 50 hitouts, so the man can get a hit out. Mackie, well done, mate. You got your pick 76 and 94. Worth holding out on. Does that even feel like a win internally? Like, can he even pretend that feels like a win? I did a trade in our fantasy league the other day, which I would have taken the first offer. I said, chuck in a fourth. And the guy's like, no. I was like, just chuck in a fourth. Made me feel good. I chucked in a fourth. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to use it. It's meaningless. That's what these picks are. Insane. And don't give me the Geelong only had one pick in this draft nonsense. Please. This is embarrassing. And a Salvador Galea, I don't even think he's worth pick 25. So I think Geelong did well anyway. Obviously, you have to overpay for tall players. He's a key position player, blah, blah, blah. I understand. I'm being facetious. But he's not that
definitely
good.
One of them. It's definitely one of them. I mean, I think Kai's onto it. It may be, for some mysterious reason. The history of pick 94, though, has an esteem history. Jade Rawlins and Marley Williams, who was actually a rookie pick, but it was the 94th pick in that period, but all went on to play 100 games for their club. So you never know. I mean, it is Geelong. Geelong are probably the masters of late picks, rookie picks becoming superstars. I mean, their flag-winning side had the most rookie picks in it in AFL history. As Kai says, they'll just burn them for the rookie picks, but you never know. You know what I mean? 94 at the AFL draft in a shallow pool could become 51, and they take the next Joe Selwood.
Hey, knowing them, they've probably already lined up they've been hiding some really decent players in like the Geelong thirds, and they're going to be fine. I did have some mail. I'll try and find it. I did have some mail on who they were looking at with like pick 110. So I'll dig that up in my archives while you continue.
Do you know what I mean? How much value does it have? It literally is just a handshake. It is literally a handshake deal. It's one of them. It's one of them picks where basically it's like, I'll buy the coffee tomorrow. But then the big trade of the trade.
I got the name for you, by the way. Sorry to cut you off. Sam Clohessy. Sam Clohessy.
Oh yeah.
They'll look at him with.
Brother, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, they'll take pick 700 and take him. It'll probably be a superstar.
Oh man, it is Ted's brother. Just checked my spreadsheet because I have a weird thing of the old family members, just because that's a Carlton fan thing. For those saying, Pom, that's a little bit weird that you keep tabs on the family. Carlton fans will love it if you can throw in a family related thing. It is indeed the musical Youth. We bag along. What a song that is. Pass the duchy to the left hand side. Elijah Hollands finds his way. Pick 28 and a future 4th come in exchange for the future 3rd we got yesterday. Pick 26. Now, an interesting little POM factoid for you all those watching at home, is this could be one of the best exercises in the history of the AFL at clubs utilising the old dodgy pick mat switch system. Because if everyone goes in their order, which probably helps them out, this pick mysteriously will actually go to 26 because they have going to match bids potentially on definitely 3 players, but potentially 4. But the value of them wiping out all 3 picks before this. So effectively, Carlton will go up into 26 again.
I love it. We traded pick 26 for pick 26. It's so good. So what did we trade? A future 3rd for a future 4th and Elijah Hollands. That's a beautiful piece of business. For the upside on him, I'm not going to say he's a superstar. He was very good in his draft, like leading up to his draft. He's had injury problems. He hasn't been able to crack into Gold Coast best midfield. But hey, for the price we've paid, it could turn out to be a bloody bargain. And worst case scenario, Ollie's going to be happy because presumably he wants to play with his brother like every other person in the AFL.
Do you know what I mean? It's going to be an interesting one, this, because, I mean, also, if you look at the future situation as well, it is a projected at the moment with bid matches. Very, very much love, Josh. I appreciate that, mate. My big head on a big screen. It's roughly 8 to 10 picks as well, different. Could go down to about 6 in them avenues. I mean, that there, the future 4th pick, just to give you a value calculator, it actually has no value to Carlton. Do you know what I mean? No value to Carlton. It's actually 0. It's a write-off. Potentially, at best case, with pick matches, it could be like a 9-pointer. So, I mean, unless you're paying like
plenty of trades going through on the back, by the way. In the background, mate, plenty of trades rolling through.
Well, we'll come on to them in a minute. But I like this deal because I really, really like Elijah. I was hot on him there. For those who were having a cry yesterday about the Paddy Dow deal, cry about this one.
So what have we done? Because I can't remember what happened. It's so long ago, I can't remember what the Paddy Dow deal was. But am I right in thinking we've effectively swapped Dow for Hollands?
Well, I mean, effectively, if you add that onto trades next year, it's fine. Do you know what I mean? It effectively, with next year, I think that if you just got rid of that future 3rd and added Hollands to that deal, I think you would argue we would win that trade. We would win that trade.
Yeah. So in total for both of these trades, we've sent out Paddy Dow, 2 future 3rd round picks, a 4th round pick, and I'm not going to count 26 because we're getting 26 back, and we've got Elijah Hollands back and a future 4th. So we traded 2 future 3rds for Elijah Hollands and Paddy Dow, I guess, but I would say there's upside there. So I think it's decent business.
Albert, it works out that we've lost 19 points by over-conservative projections, so making Gold Coast better. So it's really that pick, if you watch the video I did with Black Dog and Terry, that pick was the one that we were just saying is literally just there for banter.
Yeah.
But the other picks will have some kind of credence to it. But again, good little bit of business. And he's a multi-position player. He's an on-baller. He's basically an inverse. Think of Cunningham, an inverse Cunningham. So he is a midfielder that likes to go and play half forward, as opposed to Mr. Cunningham, who is a forward that likes to pinch it in the midfield. So the other trades, will he play round 1? I mean, potentially he's got a chance, but I would say I'd say he'll definitely be putting the pressure on. So, I mean, these are the trades that have been gone through. And obviously the AFL have said that because they're using Windows 98, it needs to do an update at 7 p.m. So that's
just insane, isn't it? Changing the time of the draft deadline 2 hours beforehand, then processing a trade 30 minutes later, and then saying, oh, by the way, we can't process trades after 7 p.m. You'll have to do it by email. Why do we follow this league? Like, really, why do we follow this league?
Because no other team is... no other sport plays 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. If they bring another one out, we'll be fully in it. But I mean, we are waiting for some more trades through. Let Dog talk us through the trade you've seen. The rumours is thank you as well. If you're in the chat, to my good mate Big QD on Twitter, who is frantically tagging me in any trade deal. Much love to you. That is an honour. But it looks like Jack Billings for a future third. Yeah,
so Billings comes into Melbourne. Have we talked about Ginnivan? Yeah, we did, didn't we? That was the first trade. He comes in for a future third. It looks like Riley Beveridge is tweeting these out. They haven't gone through AFL House yet because obviously they'll wait until later.
Well, it's Windows 98, so the processing speed on a single processor isn't very good.
I think I'm not a big Billings fan. I think there's a reason he wasn't getting into the team, and I think there's a reason he was available, and I think he's being paid a lot. The reports are that St Kilda are going to pay a chunk of that salary still. You'd think it wouldn't be that much given all they've given up as a future third, but he basically goes into Melbourne to be depth. So they lost Harms, they've lost Jordan, they lost Dunstan, who never really played senior footy, but he was averaging 35 touches in the VFL every game. I think Jack Billings is going to be that. I think he's probably accepted that unless he pulls his finger out, he's a VFL player. But he's valuable depth, I think. I think if he's the guy coming in to replace Tom Sparrow, you're probably not super stressed. So he's a decent acquisition and he's effectively free, let's be honest.
Mate, I think it's a great deal. I mean, Jack Billings is superb. I mean, potentially best player in the league. I mean, it's one of them where I feel like what Melbourne are doing, you can quite clearly see like their list management strategy this year. It's about really building that depth and competition, which is probably one of my knocks on Melbourne. When I look at Melbourne, I always feel like their best 22 is good enough to beat anyone in the league. It just feels like if you get through that core of their team, that they start to look a little bit vulnerable. And I feel like this is one of them trades where if they do what Hunter did, and remember this time last year, people were saying Hunter's cooked, and you know how the AFL is, it's probably the only league in world sport that is run by people that read Reddit and refresh it.
Yeah, literally.
So everyone was believing, the whole deals on Hunter Clark, and he had drug issues and all that, and said it's a stupid idea. Please don't bid on him. Please don't count, and please don't Hawthorn. But it turned out a good deal, didn't it? Because Hawthorn looked pretty good up at Melbourne, and this could be another one if they get him right. Billings is, in fairness, one of the best players at his trade.
I think he sucks. I mean, like, what's he done? This year he played 3 games, including some sub games, for an average of 15 disposals, no goals. Last year, 8 games for an average of 17 disposals, half a goal. The year before, 20 disposals on 18 games. So he's actually playing then for almost a goal. He just doesn't excite me. Career average 20 disposals, 0.7 goals, 2.7 tackles. He's just a bit of a nothing player. There is certainly like what he does bring to the table is he knows how to play AFL football and presumably knows how to train for AFL football. So he probably lifts your floor at your club, which I think is a good thing. And I think he's just there's nothing wrong with just being a good squad player in professional sport. Like, obviously everyone wants to be the star or playing every week. But again, as I said, if he's your next best midfield coming in, you're going to be fine. And if they play him as a forward pocket, I probably don't see them doing that, to be honest, as much since they got Shane McAdam across. But for the price they paid, you take him, right? And I'm not sure how long he's contracted for. I don't have that in front of me, but I think he still had a couple of years left on his deal. But yeah, he's all right. He sucks, but it's an all right deal.
It's another one of them deals, isn't it, that we've seen in the AFL really recently, with, if we take on your salary, can we get him for free?
Yeah.
But I agree with the chat. Like, I think he could be really good. I think he's one of them really good players potentially. And I think that with what you've paid for him, if you can get him right, this is a huge win. If you get it wrong, I always look at it this way. Future third, are you going to find someone as good as Jack Billings having an average game? Probably not year one.
No.
He's probably in the VFL learning his trade. So I think it's a fair deal. The only way this changes is Billings stays fit and then exercises what he is. And I agree with Kai. He's basically a Harms replacement. And if he goes off, it's a huge dub.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, like I think he sucks, but the cost of doing business is negligible. So it's a perfectly safe gamble to take.
Here we are, and this is the other deal that's just gone through. Kazitsky, 49. Another deal that has evidently taken 6 years to go through. It's been one of them deals that everyone's haggling. And again, it's probably gone through. I said pick 41. They're going with pick 49. They've probably taken unders from what I thought, but this is an interesting deal, isn't it? Like, obviously, Richmond get their Jack Rewalt replacement. I want to say this. I think Kajitsky is better than the pick he's gone for. Like, I know he's not absolutely fantastic, but I just think you've put time into a key forward that can play AFL grade, who potentially only gets better, and George nails it. I think the fact he's learning off players of the ilk of Tom Lynch, who is one of the best components of what he does, playing with some very solid defenders and wily defenders, he's only going to get better.
I agree. I think in terms of value, I think him and Ratugolea, both of their values is probably somewhere between the picks they were traded for, 24 and 49. So in terms of value, I think Richmond didn't have to give up that much to get him. I think you're right. I think they desperately needed a key forward. We identified that in the video we did for them. I'm just quickly pulling up our targets because I'm 100% sure that we had Kazitsky in that target list, and I like bragging. I mean, smart move for them. It actually... it kind of sucks for Hawthorn, to be honest, that they're losing another depth piece in that spot. But that's why they're trading for Yamabia Choles and that sort of player. And apparently Jack Gunston again for some reason.
I'm already on it. While you're talking.
I like this deal I do like this deal a lot because I think Richmond didn't have to. Richmond got a bargain, but equally with the incoming players, Kajitsky probably gets pushed down the pecking order a bit over at Hawthorn.
I agree. And I think, again, like, apart from, it's going to be one of them drafts this year as well, where it's very hard, I think, to ascertain where you get your good players from who are key position this year, because I think the best ones are tied up. And then if you're not, I don't think there's any projects apart from Archer Reed, who I'm really hot on. I really, really like Archer Reed. I just feel like this is a safe deal. Kajitsky's young. I think this is a very good bit of business for both teams. It's not often I look at a deal, but I think they've done really well. And the pick we're about to talk about, as I'm just drawing up the thing, Gunston comes in, which I really like this deal. And this is probably another I actually think this is a masterclass from Hawthorn, this deal.
Yeah, well, I just quickly, while you're putting it on the screen, I'll touch on, like, you look at the key forward stocks going into this trade period that Richmond had, and it was like Tom Lynch and then no one. So at least now they've got someone that they can pair up with Tom Lynch and have targets up in the forward line. And they're still a bit shallow in that spot. But then you look at Hawthorn, and they were going to be running Mitch Lewis, Kazitsky, and then some combination of Fergus Green and, I don't know, maybe a Lloyd Meek pinch hitting. But now they get to go, all right, Mitch Lewis, who's a jet, Gunston comes back, and Marbia Chol goes into that lineup. And all of a sudden, they've got 3 tall targets, one that can pinch it in the ruck. And I think that's the way we're moving, right? You want 2 big guys and a guy that can play in the ruck. And Carlton probably have one too many that they have to kind of try and feed. And I think this is, again, could just it's just good for. I really hate how Hawthorn are doing their rebuild because it's good. It's going to be successful.
Mate, spot on. And here you are. Look, Pom at the moment is making these, just so you know.
I know. You're doing God's work
in the background
friend.
while like I was talking. And I am kicking the AFL trade media's arse here. Do you know what I mean? I'm doing it. But that deal went through. I agree, chat, as well. Consistency is a rare attribute. And it's something that I think that they're pretty good at building. Richmond as well. Do you know what I mean? Here we are. Brandon Ryan, a future 4 from Hawthorn, picks 39 and 54. Make their way to Brisbane. Jack Gunston, a future 2nd, 47 and 61. And on face value, bravo Hawthorn. I love it when the bottom 8 sides punch the crap out of the top 8 sides. And I feel this is a huge win with Ginny moving to Hawthorn, the players they've got in. I think Gunston's the missing piece. And I'll tell you for why. I had the privilege a couple of years ago of going to one of their open days. Good friend of mine sponsors the Hawthorn players. And Jack Gunston spent a lot of time with the fans, took some kids out, even taught me, I was one of the kids, how to kick a check side from the boundary. But speaking to him, and his passion was developing the younger guys. He loved working with the VFL. That was something that he talked about quite candidly, something that Clarko bestilled in him, and something that he was looking forward to bringing to Sam Mitchell, and ultimately never did. I think this is a great thing because that's his passion, leaving the place. He did say something to me. He likes to leave the place in a better place than what he found it. I think with Ginny, Gunston working with him, boy, oh boy, I think this could be a great thing. And I think you'll see a return to the former glories of Jack Gunston. And Brandon Ryan, I'm not a big fan, to be honest. I mean, this for me looks like a hole filler for them. But I think get him in your fantasy side, Gunny. Gunny's going to pop next year.
It's as long as he stays fit, he'll be solid. Yeah, I'm just looking at the deal, trying to break it down. It's basically a 2nd for a 2nd, 47 for 54, and 61 for a future 4th. It's basically a wash, Gunston for Ryan. And clearly Brisbane are high on Ryan. I believe he was in their VFL team, and potentially he was in their academy as well. I can't quite remember. They clearly want to invest in him. I haven't seen enough of him to judge one way or the other. And then Gunston, you get 1 or 2 years out of him, and he comes back and does a coaching role and leads by example in a developing team, assuming that he comes into play. I think it's a really fair deal, but I'm with you. I think it adds structure to Hawthorn's forward line, and at worst adds, leadership experience and another level head to that system, which can only be a good thing. And it's sort of, again, I draw comparisons back to Carlton's rebuild, where we just didn't acquire those players. We didn't bring in new Gunstons. We didn't bring in those sort of players. And just quietly in the back of my head, I was almost hoping Carlton would try and go for Jack Gunston today, just because I really rate him, even not necessarily what he does on the field. I just really rate him.
Well, my spies do tell me that he's still there, Nick Austin.
Interesting.
So we've got an hour to go. You never know. But you know what I will say about this? Brisbane, it's basically a like for like. I agree with Kai. I'm sure it was Kai who said it. If I'm not, I'm a total liar. But I think he's just a like, oh, sorry, they are backup ruck. I agree. I feel like this is just a Tom Fullerton replacement, who, in my opinion, Ryan is a natural footballer, where if you remember Fullerton, when Australia went through that obsession, oh, you fucking shoot hoops, get on the Cat B, right? He's a better version of that. So I think it's a really good thing. But I agree, George nails it. I think Gunston, his experience, this guy's been there and done that. And I appreciate it hasn't worked out for Brisbane. But I genuinely think Gunston around that young team. And the fact that Sam Mitchell in July, what we talked about when this rumour first started, said this is the one that hurt him. There's a reason he's back. And I think this is a great deal. Great deal for Hawks. And I am quite hot on the Hawks. I am biased. Like, I am a closet defender of the Hawthorn Football Club.
Yeah, mate. I'm with you, and I'm just trying to work out this deal, because they're now saying that it might involve Marby Achol as well. It might have opened up to a 3-team deal. Can't work it out. The Hawks will on trade the future 2nd to the Gold Coast for Marby Achol, apparently.
Makes sense.
I mean, it's a good bit of business, right? You're going to bring in 2 established players, one older, one younger, but with some questionable attributes, but still he's there to be molded. And maybe it's almost they're looking at it as a package deal, right? Gunners come in, teach Chol how to train and pull his head in. And you're going to have a real deadly forward line with Mitch Lewis, Ginnivan, Bruce, Dylan Moore, who can push up to the midfield. I think, I hate it. They're really building a solid side.
I will say this as well. Gunston's a good trainer. Spending all my career playing soccer as a striker, I could only get the ball to go right to left, which is a little bit like my golf career. I was always a drawer of the ball. Fades don't exist in my world. He did teach me how to kick it with the outside of my boot and get it to swerve that way. So, I mean, if you can teach upon that, had coaching for years as a golfer and also had soccer coaching since I was 4 and couldn't get the ball to go left to right. I'm pretty sure he can work a bit of wonders with an Australian that knows what the ball is. I just think it's a funny shaped egg. Ask away, chat, while we wait for some more confirmation. We're just too efficient here. Pom and Let Dog.
I know.
Efficient. I actually really like it. Obviously, Carlton brought in Big Russell. As you know, Carlton love Russells because when we lose, we are the only football club in the world that we complain about our fitness coaches. Players don't get blamed, neither do coaches, but it's always a fitness guy. But Jordan Russell comes in as a full-time forward coach, which I think is interesting because it's interesting enough. People have dissed Ash Hansen, but looking into it and speaking to a few doggies, his primary role was tactician for Bevo. And if you've watched any of my stuff, the guy that I pick on the most in the league is Beveridge because I just feel like he gets away with being shit. Massive difference since he's gone, Austin. It's not the forward line. It's how they structure up around the ball, particularly in game. Carlton have confirmed now that Hansen will become a pure offsider to Vossi in the coach's box and Russell will take forward coaching. I really like that avenue because I feel like that, without being harsh to Voss, I feel like that's his only weakness. Is probably them tactical nuances. Hansen's linked with every senior coach's job here. I feel like it's good.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I don't think Vossi's necessarily there for his tactical nous, right? He's there for other reasons. He has different strengths. And yes, just before the comments, Jordan Russell's the only player I have on record. To be fair, my records only go back sort of 11 years that has traded between Carlton and Collingwood. Now he's coming back to play or to coach for the Blues. So that's pretty cool. He was traded.
What about Daisy Thomas?
Well, he was a free agent. He doesn't count. Otherwise, we've got to count Alex Fasolo as well. And I'm not willing to do that.
I was just building you in if you'd change the rules because, honestly, Alex Fasolo is my favourite person in the world because I have never met a guy in a bar who has said, please don't call me Alex. Call me the Prince of Perth. And his mate who was next to him was like, no one fucking calls you that. And he was like, I do. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to call you Alex. Cheers, mate.
Then he went and broke his arm doing a keg stand the week before the fucking season started.
Mate, I like it. I like it. Richard B. Flat, I'm going to let you hit the punchline. What do you call a man who hides under a pile of leaves? I'll wait for the thing. I'm excited about it. I am excited about it. But no, obviously off-season deals. Everyone in the chat, keep filling us in.
Jordan Russell's getting not enough love. There was one season there where he was, I'm just trying to pull it up, but he was quite a handy little player. I reckon it was 2011, 2010. He was solid. Yeah, maybe he wasn't. Maybe he wasn't. No, there was one year where he was good. I remember him in Supercoach in my early days.
Mate, I agree. And I mean, this guy's coached everywhere. So, 5 years ago, he was at the Dogs, where he did midfield transition, backline, midfield development with the NGA. Went to full-time NGA development at the Doggies. After that, assistant coach for the mids. You know what, though? A lot of things, and I've seen the comment already, like clockwork. I love it. Just about Davey asking, he hasn't coached the forwards to date, and he wasn't. Genuinely speaking, this is an interesting fact because I've got a lot of mates who coach in EPL level down to conference. You do find a lot of the teachings, particularly with people learning their trade, is defenders coach forwards, forwards coach defenders, and it's quite common in soccer training and rugby training, and it's all started to become AFL because obviously they know how to unlock it. So if you're a good defender, you know what beats you, and vice versa. And you'll find at a lot of the clubs, the defenders and the forward coaches interchanging the groups as well to work in that. So don't ever think that just because he's a forward coach means he's only dealing with the forwards. He'll flirt with other things. Quality, Richard. Quality. What do you call a man hiding under a pile of leaves, Russell? I love it. But I like that from Albert. Good ordinary player. Good ordinary player. Harry kicks
had myself muted, and for good reason. I'm glad you guys didn't hear that attempt at a joke.
Oh.
No, it was a Brendan Bolton joke. Don't worry about it.
Can we hear it?
No, I was just talking about you can it doesn't matter.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, so there it is. So I mean, obviously we're just waiting for the time for more trades to pass. There's a few evidently approaching because the AFL have specified as well that after 7 there is an extension.
Email them.
No, but after 7 there is an extension. You can bet your arse to a barn dance there is a trade. Right?
Oh, it'll be the Dersma BZT one. I've been having this discussion on Twitter with people that because they're saying, well, if he goes to PSD, Essendon will just pick him up. That they won't. They won't do that. The AFL won't let Essendon take him again because that's how we work. They will go to mediation and then he'll end up getting to Port Adelaide. But I think that trade will actually happen last minute. The other thing to remember, guys, or not guys, everyone, is that picks can still be traded after this. The listed free agency still happens. So guys like Orazio, Fantasia, Pom they'll move in as delisted players. Scott Lycett, wherever he goes, if he doesn't retire, he'll move as a delisted free agent. So there will still be some deals that happen over the next couple of weeks, but they just won't all necessarily happen today.
Well, I mean, the deals we're waiting on at the moment are Marabocho, which is expected to be that future second we discussed. Massimio D'Ambrosio, who again is the guy that could just walk.
I think they shit the bed on that one, Essendon. If they get anything for them.
And BZT still hasn't been done. And if you believe the rumours today, after Dodoro, who is having a splendid off-season, it's got to be said.
Isn't he?
He's going out with a fucking bang. He is saying now that they will listen to offers with Dylan Shield. So that's 5 deals potentially we've got. And I reckon we'll have an extra surprise deal.
Did you see the quote from Essendon where they basically, Dodoro said, it's not fair that he'll be able to move as a delisted free agent because that rule happened after we traded for him or whatever. And it's just like, shut up. Learn the rules. Also, the AFL changes rules whenever they want. You should expect it.
Do you know what I mean? Well, I mean, they're a very interesting case. They are an interesting case. It's an interesting one with this. What do we think of Port's trades today? They've been an interesting one because they're a team that I always think the most interesting trade periods are the teams that you look at who have made the 8, maybe, and what they do. I always think they are. Now, Port, for me, I like that serial nothing team that seems to always make the 8, but don't do it. And I feel like last season was a disaster for them. They looked so good, but then fell off an earth. I was expecting them to be quite progressive in this trade period in the terms of maybe get a bit creative. I was actually thinking someone like Ollie Wines may leave them in the terms of the try and cash in on a player.
Yeah,
they just seem to have signed Ruckman and suspectively bring in BZT.
Yeah, they're going to end up signing 2 pretty average key position defenders. A first choice ruckman, which is nice, which is something, and then a backup ruckman. I guess their midfield's pretty good. They're probably rolling the dice that Charlie Dixon's healthy next year. They needed key defenders, but they probably needed better key defenders. I don't know what to make of them. I think they're hoping that just their quality of midfield is going to get them through next year. I'm not too bullish on them for next year at this stage. I don't know. I really don't know what to make of them. I think the Dersma out is an attempt to be a bit clever, but yeah, I don't know. Re-signing Travis Boak again, I liked, but again, you don't want him in your team every week next year. It's an interesting one. I think they might dip a bit next year, but I said that this year, and then they won 18 games in a row. So
I think there'll be that. I think there'll be 8th. I think there'll be that side that sneak in. I just feel like I feel like teams become in a rock and a hard place. Do you know what I mean? Where they get in, and congratulations, jess, he gets married. Best day of your life, Jack. Best day of your life.
He's probably watching right now.
Mate, he will be, because this is where he gets all of his trade news, rumours, and whatnot. But a trade chat, as we're talking, has been announced. You ready for this? This is bizarre. You know what I love about this is all the trades going through now are about half of the recommended value of what the clubs were chasing a week ago. Maribor Chol gets to Hawthorn for pick 62. And Maribor Chol doesn't join the same.
They get the future second. So Gold Coast get that future second from the other deal from Brisbane. So they'll get pick roughly 36. And they send out Chol and pick 62, which I think that, again, the pick 62 is meaningless. Who cares? Doesn't matter. But Mabior Chol, he does fit the needs of Hawthorn. I just hope he can get it all together and actually produce what he did 2 years ago for Gold Coast, which was, what did he kick, like 40 goals that year? Something like that.
What was who was linked to that pick, that future second? Who
Brisbane.
Did they send?
Brisbane's future second.
Tell you what, here, I'll update that. I got too excited, chat. I apologise. I got too excited. I half read it. I'm a bad human being.
But now, if you look at their starting 6, let's say starting 7 forwards, Dylan Moore, who's a gun, Luke Bruce, who's still dangerous, Jack Ginnivan, Mitch Lewis, Mabior Chol, Jack Gunston, and then Fergus Green as that 7th hybrid. It is a pretty impressive forward line. Like, there's not Dylan Moore's probably Mitch Lewis as well is a pretty good player. Dylan Moore's probably the stud of that bunch, but that's a really dangerous forward line. As long as they can get it into them efficiently, they're going to be really good, which as we discussed earlier, I'm not a big fan of. And Mabior Chol adds flexibility in the ruck, so they'll probably run. They probably don't even play Lloyd Meek anymore, even though he was a big acquisition last year. It's probably Ned Reeves and Mabior Chol.
Mate, I agree. And there's the trade. So the future second from Brisbane, 62, and Maribor Chol goes there. Interesting as well that I feel like Hawthorn have really... I agree with Albert. I think they've gone A grade. And now they have got as well them picks. They've got them plethora of picks as well to upgrade players in their rookie, which is what rumoured they're going to be doing. But also, they also have a decent arsenal to match bit to get Chill Giaith and Will McCabe, which will be father and son. They're going to have to take Giaith as well. But it looks like that they've got the picks around there as well to do that. So I agree with Albert. I actually think Hawthorn have won this trade period.
Yeah, I think they probably have when we look back on it, particularly when you consider we're projecting a lot of upside and improvement in their younger guys. I think big tick so far. It's hard. I always hate the who won trade period conversation because everyone's trying to achieve different things. For instance, the Blues internally will think they've won trade period because they think their list is good enough as it is and they just needed to address some depth. And then Essendon will think they've won the trade period because they think they've won every trade period. So it's interesting, but I think objectively if we're talking about filling holes that we had for lists before this period, I think Hawthorn have addressed the holes. Hawthorn and Sydney have addressed those holes well. I think we forget about Sydney because all their stuff happened at the start. Sydney would be up there for me. They needed an inside mid, a ruckman, a key position depth, and they got an inside mid, a ruckman, Brodie Grundy, Taylor Adams. They got James Jordan, and then they also got Hamling. So I'm pretty boyish on Sydney as well.
Mate, I agree. I also think, T Mello, good day to you, my friend. Good day, Jace. I do actually think as well, reigning premiers. It's always interesting. I always find reigning premiers, their trade period's really interesting. I do think just quietly as well, Collingwood have got a lot better and still retain their first selection of this. Bevtone spot on. I think North have done incredibly well as well. And it'd be interesting to see as we get close to the draft, what they do, because they've come out again and said that all their picks are on the table, bar 2 and 3. So that'll be an interesting development, 15, 17, and 18. You'd imagine there's a few sides out there that would be keen on that one, right? Would be keen on that one as well. So it's going to be very interesting. I should say,
when I was addressing the winners question, I'm thinking more about players. You're right. North have bought in, 5 first-round picks or something? Yeah. That's pretty good too.
And I mean, it'd be interesting to see where them picks end up. It's going to be an interesting one because, a lot of clubs like Carlton. I really like Carlton's trade period, and obviously it's still got another 9 minutes, but in real life it's got 39 minutes. I mean, potentially it has 4 hours, 39 minutes. Do you know what I mean? But that'll be interesting. The big news is, if I can't remember. I did that video about what Carlton's list status is. As surprised, it looks like Carlton are going to use one of their back-end picks, it's been reported, to promote Pom Cotter to the senior list. So congratulations to Pom Cotter. You're a real boy.
Yeah, nice. And that's helps maintain some flexibility moving on. So, yeah.
I mean, this is going to be something, right? And this is something I want to talk about, Collingwood and Carlton. No one's talking about this, but I agree. Team Mello nails it here. They got rid of a guy that was on the outskirts of the 22. They then brought in Schultz. He's definitely on the outskirts of 22. He ain't getting past Schultz. They've got a decent value for him, right? And then Taylor Adams, 31, right, for a guy that they'd slot across half forward, which has allowed them to do a bit of business and do that. Carlton have done the same thing, jettison 2 players that aren't in their best 22. And if we hadn't done the Elijah Hollands deal, people would have complained. But I like that because this is where you are. When you're a good club, it's about churning out your shit and getting something back. Because Fisher is best 22. Carlton, Zach Fisher isn't best 22 at Carlton. At North he is. There's a chance that Dow does play every week at St Kilda. He wouldn't there. So that really excites me for me. That's what the good clubs do. They churn their tosh out. And I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Equally, though, for Team Mello, right, you can improve by subtraction, but that doesn't mean that the clubs acquiring the players that didn't fit your team aren't getting better as well. Like Ginnivan becomes a best 22 player just due to the fact that Hawthorn don't have that many forwards, and Adams will go back to playing in the midfield for Sydney. I agree. We talked about it many times over the last week and a half and in our preview video that they needed someone that he fills the hole that they need. He wouldn't have been the player that I would have gone after because of that injury prone, but they're banking on him being fit and he fits the role that they need to fill. So I think both can be true. Collingwood can get better for losing players, and equally the clubs that they go to can get better. And it's the same for us, right? Carlton lost Zach Fisher. He's not in our best 22. I promise you he's going to be in the starting back 6 for North Melbourne pretty much every game he's healthy next year. So it can work both ways.
And depending on what sources you would read on social media, it could be an all-Australian player. Someone the other day said, I'm not going to name and shame them. I want to, but I won't. Too much respect. Someone said that Zach Fisher under Clarko could become Josh Gibson.
I don't even know how to. I actually don't even know what that means, and I will not respond to it.
Yeah, you know when you say something that's just so funny. But Jesus, it'd be an interesting one. But I mean, like you say, just because then you're like one man's trash is another man's treasure. So I like it. Finlay McRae to burst out. Probably as well. That's another thing that people don't talk about. I did hear Chris Judd about Paddy Dow. Dabo, good man here. He's starting the Reddit rumours on my channel. Clayton Oliver and Big Ginny, it was seen running around in just their shorts. I do love how rumours start. That'll probably get a run now. I hope it does.
It's so good, and but you're right. Like this, you know, and I always say this: addition by subtraction. All of a sudden, Finlay McRae, as was pointed out in the chat, comes into the frame for playing in the midfield for Collingwood. It's the same at Carlton. Jack Carroll comes into the frame playing in the midfield. Obviously, he's a backup, but still, it's the whole. That's what you want from your list, and a lot of the fans on this channel, Palmer Carlton fans, and probably, you know, probably skewing towards younger Carlton fans as well. So we've actually never seen what a list is supposed to look like, where you have good players and you send some of them out and you bring in young players and then they become good players. We're just only getting to that cycle now. So it should, in theory, as long as you maintain it properly, it should sort of feed itself. And, you know, it's how Hawthorn were good for a long time, and it's how Geelong were good. And the benefit of that is, if you've got the young players coming through, your Finn McRae's, your Jack Carrolls, whatever, whoever you want to call it, you can still go and top up, and you can still go and just buy good players if you've got the cycle there. And Carlton fans, we're at the start of that journey, which is exciting. And Collingwood, even though they just won the flag, they're kind of at the start of that journey as well. So if they can manage their stuff, they're going to keep being good.
That's where we want to be this time next year. We want to be at that situation where, you know, let's say Kennedy can't get into the side. He's suddenly a pick 28, 26 to a side that does. Say Jack Carroll knocks down the house in VFL. Carlton see a big-bodied midfielder. Do you know what I mean? Suddenly they snap him up, and you've got that conveyor belt of guys on the surplus, 25 to 30, and you get something back. It's a real exciting time. Obviously, though, I do want to talk about, obviously, there's a lot of teams who have gone hard for picks in the 20s this year, excluding Gold Coast, because we know what they're doing. I look at the second round. Now, I know that the first round is where everyone's excited. It's pretty tasty. The first 10 names called out in the AFL draft, without a shadow of a doubt, are exciting. Apart from my boy James Leake, look out for him. Old Leaky, big fan of me Tassie boy. But I do look at the second round, and a few questions coming in what Carlton might do with their second rounders. A couple of players there that I just reckon are stonewall all Australians, just quietly.
Well, I mean, you look through the history of drafts, Palm, and I'm just looking at the average games played for second rounders, and it ranges between 50 and sort of 90 games. And I think we forget when we're discussing players that, like, the average AFL career in terms of years and games played, it's not very long. So if you're getting 50 games out of a second round, or 80 games or 90 games out of a second round, you're doing all right. I think I said this before, people always undervalue second rounders, when in reality, unless it's a top 10 pick, the difference between pick 18 and pick 25, 27, 28, it's not huge.
Right, I agree. And I think there's a lot of players just like, I feel like for a club like Carlton, when I look at the people who have got picks in that area, like Geelong, Carlton, teams like that, I just feel like there's a lot of players there that really complement their lists in bringing them in. Adelaide are also snuck in there. Just to prop your list up and get them 5th, 6th best players in their position. And I think Carlton had that luxury this year. Jackson Binns, whole year in VFL. And from watching that guy who was regarded by some to be the best winger in Victoria, notice that status is in that conversation. Ollie Hollands. When I did the draft interviews, every player, even the South Australian, said Jackson Binns. Why are you not talking about him? Jet, his defensive craft has been impressive. So we've had a year of building that on him, and he looks really well-rounded. There's a lot of players here, players like Harvey Johnston. Sandy Dragon's always a good player. Charlie Edwards, I'm looking at. I really like Charlie Edwards. I feel like Charlie Edwards is the upgrade on Dow. There's a lot of players there. Lons Callard, Giaf, Newell is a real good player. So I really like, I feel like there's some real excitement there. Excitement that no one's talking about.
No, I agree. And I'm just looking at the median, which is the average without the outliers, everyone playing at home. The median games played for players picked 11 to 20 is 86, 61 for 21 to 30. It's 36 for 31 to 50. Basically, you're probably going to get a 50 gamer out of someone. Every 1.9 selections, you're going to get a 50 gamer in that range. So, and there's obviously outliers, right? There's guys that play no games and there's guys that play 300 games. So I'm with you, Pom. I think we need to get excited about these second rounders. That's where good clubs get successful. It's not just relying on Jacob Wiedering and Sam Walsh.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting because, I mean, there is a few media outlets reckoning that there's 2 trades left. I'm just reading this. Massimo D'Ambrosia and Xavier Dersmer swapping with Zerk Thatcher. But they also believe that there's a couple of clubs working on pick swaps as we speak, which I think is going to be a really interesting time because I could see a sneaky little deal coming through. But, I mean, let's talk about pick 1 while we're here. It looks like pick 1 isn't going to be done. It could potentially be done now or next year. A lot of people have asked me questions off camera about what Carlton do with their picks. Do they trade up? I think it's going to be a really interesting situation for Carlton because I'm a firm believer that you pick. It's sometimes safer. Looking at the draft next year, I think there's a lot of conjecture of where players will be. So I think if there is a deal to be done today for a player like Nate Caddy, you take what you can see as opposed to guessing next year. And the examples I'll use, this time last year, I had Harry Lemmy, 25th best talent. The average of the draftees who cover it had him as the 5th to 7th best talent in the country. Where did he end up? Same with Tom Scully, right? These players can slide very quickly, and all it takes is an injury. It can be a case of people move and they change their catchment, their club area. This is where Carlton have got to look at. Do they go hard this year? Do clubs go hard this year to get into that top 10 pool? Or do they slide down and take the risk next year? Because I think that's what West Coast have got to ask themselves with pick 1. For me, if you've got pick 1, you take Hardy Reid. You know he's good, right? You don't get creative unless it's 2 and 3, which I think is overs.
It is.
But that's what I'd be asking for.
Absolutely.
You take Hardy Reid every day.
Agree. I mean, Bob, the discussion around why this year's picks, valued more than next year's picks. You got a year extra data. I think that's the simplest way to put it. There's a reason, as you said, players slip and move in projections. And a lot can happen in a year. But what we do know right now is that we've got 365 more days of data on these players than the ones in the next draft. So, and anything can happen, and particularly when you're turning from, 16, 17 to 18. Some of these guys might grow 7 feet. You just don't know. So I'm with you. I'm always more on the get the guy depending on the price. Obviously, we've seen it not totally work out for the Blues with your Liam Stockers and the like. But again, that's kind of the gamble you have to take.
Mate, you do. The draft is on the 20th. Do you know what I mean? The 20th
of November. Of November.
So that's Monday, I believe. So a month in 2 days' time. Don't know why I said it like that. That was a lot more complicated. I apologise. It's going to be interesting. What about Cowan? I was a big fan of Cowan. I've got to say, there is a Tasmanian tax in this country. And it might change when we actually get a Tasmanian side. But James Leake is not 10 to 20 talent in this country. He's a little bit better than that. And Colby McKercher doesn't get talked about enough. But the kid is a pure, unadulterated superstar. People asking about small forwards. Colton Thulstrop, I think he would be there, but with matches and what other teams are looking for, I think Colton Thulstrop will be long gone by the time Carlton pick. If you're looking for a player that plays that half forward, little crafty, evasive role, my draft previews will be coming out for these players, but check out my boy, Harvey Johnston. He's got a little bit about him, a little bit of sex appeal.
I'm just going to quickly jump in because I've been doing these player comparisons that Richard Little spits out from his model. I'll just go through some of the names. Paddy Dow, he projects to become sort of an Elliot Yeo, James Harms type player based on his numbers. I think he can probably be a bit better. Ivan Soldo projects out at your Toby Nanker versus Zach Smith, Segler, Giles, Paddy Ryder, Rody Grundy, Nick Nat. They're your upper end echelon. So I think he'll be a good one. But interestingly, so I've just lost it. There was an interesting one. Elijah Hollins, a lot of upside. His projections come out at like Hunter Clark, Oliver Florent. That's not that exciting. But then Lockie Weller, Ed Langdon, Dom Sheed, Lockie Hunter. There's some interesting comparisons. So we've got a bit to be excited about with young Elijah Holland, everyone.
Well, I'm telling you, I mean, if you break that pick down, it's basically a third, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's a third round pick. So let's take an average. Let's throw a blanket, because when people say future thirds, people want you to have hairy. I've got hairy balls, not crystal. I'm not very good at predicting the future. But let's just say it's right in the middle, right? Let's just say fair place, right in the middle. And then you're going to say, well, we're talking about Carlton specifically. So let's say we're right in the middle of the top half of the middle. So the best 25%. Let's say that's pick 50. Right, I would say this. Do you think Elijah Hollins is going to be better than anyone taking pick 50 this year, Pom? Fucking 2,000%. Do you know what I mean? I would be so confident. I would hold a gun to my head, and if I'm wrong, you could shoot me. Right, do you know what I mean? In this year's draft. So specifically this year's draft. In next year's draft, I'd also say 90% confident that he's better. So for me, it's an instant bet. And Elijah Hollins is one of my favourite players from the draft class he had. I was huge on him. He was an absolute beast. He was a beast in the way he plays. I loved watching him. I watched him playing in the juniors, watched him play VFL this year. I get an inclination that if he can get his body right, he will be a very, very good footballer. And by all reports, I thought Gold Coast comments on him were really open. They talked about that maybe their issues with rehab was a bit fucked, and maybe they rushed him back at times. They didn't get him to play in his best position. Things happened where players came in that they weren't expecting. I really feel like he's a real good player, and I agree with Sebastian. I actually see him as a huge upgrade on Cunners, and I love Cunners. He's my boy. But I just feel for what Vossi wants, he's really prioritised. If you play half forward, you play in the middle.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, well, I was going to say he could get in ahead of Fogarty, but I think we've seen that they like Fogarty in the middle. A lot of those later games in the seasons, he spent a lot of time there. But I agree. I think it's that Cunningham Fogarty type role or spot in the team that he's coming for. He's younger. He's got upside. Cunningham, we sort of, it's hard to know, right? I want to see him with a full preseason behind him. We got reminded at his sort of class, if I can use that term, and his silk Pom when he first returned, but then he obviously dropped off in terms of his output. Whereas if they're both healthy, I think Hollins has more to offer in the middle. Cunningham probably has a bit more to offer in the forward line. And I think we've got enough targets in the forward line to kick goals. So I'm with you. I think that's the spot he'd be going for. The other things, we don't want to make this a full Carlton show. Other players we've got to consider is you got Zach Williams, who needs to come back into this team. He's a big one. We don't really know exactly what the tall defensive setup's going to be yet. Mitch McGovern, Kemp, Wiedering, Marchbank, how many of them play? There's a few things to shuffle. So that's why I don't have Elijah locked in to a starting 22 role next year, but I think he'll absolutely push for it.
Mate, I agree with you. And if you are interested in doing a bit of research on these players. Go and watch the Carlton game we played, Elijah Hollands, where it's probably one of the few games in the last couple of years where he's played his preferred role. Go and watch him. He absolutely was a nightmare that day. There's a load. And a few questions coming in about mature age players. And I agree with Dr. Doofenshmirtz. Ben, good mate of mine, always intelligent, and that's why I like him. He always has some good comments. There's a lot of players here that are in the draft, and I will suspect this year that you'll see a lot of these being picked up, especially because a lot of them have gone onto the national list. Now, it's really interesting that the national list, as it stands at the moment, where the cutoff has been on, there's only 61 players in the draft, right, this year. So let that sink in. That's actually quite low. So that's why people are saying there's not going to be many picks. It's not so much because the talent shit. It's because there's not. So at the moment, there's only 61 prospects on there. There's been a few senior players, and a lot of them have done. So one of the guys I want to talk about is Mutaz El Noor. I am really excited about this one. Now, it is believed he's on his way to Fremantle. Damer, shout out to you. But he's another player who's had a real good VFL year. There is reports, interesting enough, about Mutaz El Noor that he joined Richmond's VFL because he was guaranteed. Now, this is just an unsighted rumour, but it is the noise. It is the noise. I'm going to put a caveat. This is the noise. But he was promised to go on the mid-season draft, and they didn't. Now, there's that player. You've got players like Ethan Phillips, who have entered the draft this year. Half of Werribee has entered the draft this year. You've got Josh Chatfield, Bailey van der Heuvel. Great name, by the way. And there's a few, like I say, of the young lads at Werribee, particularly the guy that tore up the final, Shane Manor, who had a real thing. So there's going to be a lot of players there, they're mature age players that are going to be in this that I suspect a few teams will sniff at. And I do have a sneaky feeling because Carlton have announced one rookie A, right? And we need to do two, which will probably be Cottrell, I'd imagine. I reckon we might sneak someone else, like a Ben Wrong, like a Ned Carl. I reckon Ned Carl will be primary, but I also think you might see Carlton go into this, as well as Collingwood and some other top clubs.
I think it's Nick Austin's shown that he's happy to do that. He's done that several times, right? Jordan Boyd. Who else has he brought in? Was he in charge of the Cottrell pick? I can't remember if he was Cottrell at the time, but he was a bit of a mature ager. He's brought up Pom Cotter. Like, we've seen him sort of do this sort of thing before. I think you're right, and it's funny. I kind of hope it's Ben Ronk because I tweeted about him about 4 years ago, how he'd be the perfect acquisition for the Blues. I'm still waiting for them to get him. So I'd be very happy if that was the result. But I think you're right, Pom. I think the Blues are going to look to bring in probably 2 picks in the national draft and then maybe one more mature ager. I think that's probably where we land. Mate, Ned Cahill says Tony, which he had a very good season as well playing for us. Used to play for Essendon.
He turns me on a little bit. I just feel like if I was choosing between Ronk, I agree with Kai. I just feel like the age of Ronk goes against him. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But I'm a big keen. I'm very keen on players like Ned. I feel like Ned was hard done by Essendon. Interesting little thing about Essendon. I've never checked if this is true, but this comes from a teammate of Ned Cahill at Essendon. But when he was delisted, he was actually told that they preferred Mosquito. And then they delisted Mosquito like 2 days after Ned. I've never tried to validate that story, but it's one of my favourite stories because it does literally sound like something Essendon would do. Nah, mate, sorry. Irvin's ahead of you, kidder. Bring Irvin in. Let's bring Liston.
And then tell the AFL, we didn't know the rules. That's not fair.
Join Heath Buck. He is interested in Werribee Park. I do believe it was Shane Manaher. So my only reservation against Shane, no offence to him, but his best work is on the outside. And I feel like Carlton have a plethora of outside, which makes me feel weird because me and Black Dog have been demanding wingers at Carlton Football Club since 1986.
Yeah.
And now me saying, fuck, we don't need him. But he's a guy there that if I was a North Melbourne, if I was one of them teams, get them in. Get them in. I mean, for me, Mutaz El Noah is my favourite. I actually feel he is the most hard done by player because thank God we've got a mid-season trade period coming up. Because everyone who takes picks in the mid-season draft, bar Hawthorn, are fucking stupid.
Didn't we do some decent picks in the decent action in the mid-season draft?
We did all right with Jordan Boyd and Matt Cottrell, our seed. But I mean, but then again,
I'm with you though.
No, but did we? Because do you remember when we called out Jordan Boyd and fucking you had what's his face? You had oh god, his name's gone out my head. Who's the other guy? Not Nick Austin. His mate.
Yeah, or whoever, and they said, we're really happy to have a nice pressure half small forward. And we were like, he's never played there before.
Mate, honestly, people came at me for that saying, I think they know more about fucking the players they're signing. God, what's it? What's his name? It's not Nick Austin. Who's the other guy?
Don't know. Was it Power?
No, it's his mate.
I don't know. I'm just excited that Matt Gandolfo. What about the Gold Coast forward, Brodie McLaughlin, who I've been talking about to Pom for several weeks? Seems unrealistic, but I like him because he's a footballer and he can kick goals.
Agresta did the interview and he said we're excited at getting a goal sneak small forward who has been kicking goals regularly for the VFL, and he had no goals for the VFL. But then again, we also did take Josh DeLuca pick one, and he was a pure.
When people said it wasn't fair that we cut him like 6 months later. It was like he knew what the contract was. He got paid $50,000 plus $5,000 a game. He did all right.
Mate, Brodie McLaughlin. It's a good point you make here. Franger boy. Absolutely tore it up in the VFL last year. He would be another player you would imagine. Goals. You would imagine a lot of teams will be looking at that as well. You know who I think may look at that? Fremantle need to look at that.
The only thing that probably goes against him, I just feel like if you get cut 6 months in, they all the other clubs will freak out when they don't really need to. But I'm with you. I think we've been talking about ideally, I would love to have a backup forward target on our list for Harry and Charlie, and I think he fits the bill. Mature age, very good in VFL. He's got all the physical attributes for it. I agree, though. Freo, he would be solid because they don't want to be trying to play Matt Taberner, the corpse of Matt Taberner again this year.
Mate, someone should have gone in for Levi. But I agree. I think McLaughlin's very good. I feel like with the key forwards, though, like I feel like you've got to. It's a tough one. You know, Archie Reid is the guy that I'm really excited about in the draft this year. I really like Archie Reid, and you know what I love about the AFL draft, and it's going to happen next year as well. Mark my words. Book stamp this. 18th of the 10th, 2023. Pom makes the call, but there's Tyler Welsh next year linked with Adelaide, right? So what will happen is, because he's a NGA, father-son, what will happen is everyone will be talking about him and the other key forwards in the comp will just get forgotten about. So next year, just early jaws, right? There's also Tom Gillett, who's Brisbane NGA. And as we know, evidently, if you're in the northern area of Australia, you're allowed to keep your players because that's the league we run. Just look out for players like Jasper Mayer at Sturt in South Australia. Cooper Walsh. I really like Cooper Walsh from WA. Just look out for these players because they will probably be little hidden gems while the rest of the world gets excited about one player. I'm
excited. I don't have anything to add because you're the draftee expert, mate.
But honestly, Archer Reid this year, really like Archer Reid. He's got something about him. He's got something about him as Archer Reid. And also, you could convince yourself he's Harley's brother.
Yeah, you could tell yourself that. Yeah, that's not a bad point from Sebastian. Curnow, Mackay, JSOS, TDK, and Pito. But again,
Big Rick.
I do much prefer JSOS as the designated third tall. I didn't like the look of us, particularly when one of Curnow or Mackay were down. I know we were in winning streaks, but still.
You know what would be my dream scenario from now? While people, oh wait, there's a trade gone through, or AFL just text me. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, it's just the Marbia Chol.
We did the Maribor Chol one an hour ago. They've got no computer. They should just have me and you.
Like. Yeah, remember they're on emails right now. So,
and you know what? Wouldn't it be great? I'd love there to be a world exist that someone comes in for Xavier Dershmer, right? Xavier Dershmer, late, and then BZT goes to PSD.
It'd be so good. I don't think it will because that's not how they. If it was another sport, 100% that would have happened.
Why is no one going in? Just interesting chat to hear your thoughts and yours, Letdog. You know what? Xavier Dershmer, it's not far away. It's not long ago, if you remember that. About 2-3 years ago, he was the best one. So everyone got excited about Xavier Dershmer, right? And there was probably, it would be fair to say after his draft year, he was probably the second best player of the three. But he's really shot down with injuries. I am shocked no one is after a player like Xavier Dershmer. I am shocked no one has gone. Port Adelaide genuinely don't value their players at all, in fairness. We can go in there and put a little bit of a pick together because he was so good. When he was at Gippsland, his leadership, his ability to play inside and outside midfield and slip across half forward, I just feel he's a good player.
Yeah, no, he certainly was. Body's always been the issue. I've just looked on Twitter the words Dershmer and Star. He was the Rising Star nominee in round 6, 2019, 24 disposals, 8 marks, a goal. He was good. He was good. And I think he probably still is. And he's still young. But his issue is his body. But it is weird. Like, I think in a real sport, Pom, someone else would have traded for him. But it's a weird one where they've got to be like, oh no, I want to go here. Please, could I go here? I'm homesick. So they got to do all that act first.
Well, it's funny because Xavier Dershmer's agent came out this morning and said that he wants to play football. He wants to play football. Now, this is one of them situations where I look at it and I think if I was North, right, and I've got all these ridiculous picks, right? So, like, I've got, like, you know what? They've got, like, what? This year, they've got 18, right? They've got 57. I would be happy to give pick 18 to them. Genuinely, I would be happy to give pick 18 to Port Adelaide, right now, and maybe get a future back to safeguard next year and go, Xavier Dershmer is going to be better than pick 18 at the draft, and he's going to be ready now.
Yeah, I think there's a few clubs that he can fit into. Anthony is asking if we'd want him at the Blues. Don't think so. Don't think he... I'd like him, but I don't think he's playing for us. I don't think he'd be in that wing rotation, realistically. I think... Well, apparently Tom Morris has just tweeted... Essendon want a future second and Zersma. What is it? Port wanted Zerk Thatcher and a future second. Essendon said no. Now Essendon's offered a 4th rounder as a sweetener in a straight swap. Hey,
you know what? I wouldn't mind Dershmer at Carlton. I feel like you play him at half forward, pinch hitting on the ball. Mate, it depends how much he's on, but I don't 100% hate it. I do believe Hayden Crozier. I do believe Hayden Crozier is going to re-sign on the rookie deal with Dogs for a year. I believe that Nick Austin kind of curbed it at the start of trade period when Nick Austin said that they were looking at players if they couldn't agree 1-year extensions for Durden and Marchbank, but both of them did. So I'd imagine that shelves any interest in Hayden Crozier.
Yeah, I don't really see what he brings to the table either way. If we're going to go down that road, I'm sure there's plenty of other Bulldogs we can look at. I'm really disappointed we haven't got one in. I reckon Toby McLean's going to end up at the Blues. We have to get a Bulldog. He's the one that makes sense to me.
Not Toby McLean. You know what? It might piss Dylan Stevens off if he went to North. But I mean, I'm telling you what, that's the best celebration in the AFL. Xavier Dersma. Quality celebration. He's
Reece Matheson used to do the shotgun.
You'd rather Zane Dersma. He's a very talented footballer. It's a shame. Yeah, you know what? Mr. Jim Moss nails it. Like, you know, this deal here with Essendon, and I'm so glad that that Dodoro will be gone this time next year, right? Because fuck me, he ruins trade period for me. Because I mean, if this is the report, they want something extra and they're willing to offer a future fourth, just do the fucking deal, man.
Yeah. Yeah. You want the player you have that's out of contract wants to go to the other club. Pay the price. Just do the fucking deal.
Honestly, it just annoys me, like, this needing to win a trade. Like, you know, the way I look at it, and Dog made a good point earlier, who won trade period. I genuinely don't subscribe to winning the trade period in the terms of if you get what you feel makes your list better, the price is inconsequential, really. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, it's a little bit like me and my mate had this argument the other day because he's dropped a lot of money on his wedding and I didn't. Me and my Mrs. Pom didn't drop it. And I was like, at the end of the day, as long as you enjoy it and it's the best day of your life, it could be $5,000, could be 50.
Yeah.
It's the same with trades. Like, if you are confident Xavier Dersma turns you into a bottom 6 team to a top 8 team, doesn't matter if you did a fair swap for BZT or got a third. You're in the 8.
Yeah. Yeah. Shouldn't the focus be just getting the players that you want?
Like, this is the big thing as well. Like, you know, Matt Rose is there at the moment and he's got no real power. They have admitted that he's overseeing the trade period and he takes the reins as of the 1st of December after the draft. Why? Like, why?
I don't know. Because he wants to. I don't know.
Can you imagine being Matt Rosa right now, and you're seeing him piss the AFL off, and then thinking it's funny at first, you probably would be like laughing, kind of, that's quality, and then it would dawn on you, you're going to have to deal with that club next year to do trades.
I know. It's just, that's what I was saying last night. You'd just be DMing all the other list managers going, just fucking, this doesn't count, all right? Don't. Whatever you want, I'll sort you out next year. Just, this isn't me, all right? I just want you to know that. Sometimes you know my boss will do that. They'll fuck up, and then I'll message them and go, hey, just so you know, that's not coming from me.
Yeah, you know what I'd be doing? 1st of December, they give me the keys to the job. And then I would be literally sending everyone 24 beers and going, sorry about that. It is being reported with 2 minutes left. Zirk, Thatcher and Dersma is a bomber. Josh Mooney, as always, when he reports South Australian news, is about as vague as a Tinder date. Just says details to follow. But as usual, took the time to tag every media outlet in the country. Cheers, Sparrow, for that real insightful bit of intel.
I reckon. I hope to God Essendon have got nothing out of this. I hope.
Oh wait.
I mean,
so it appears Essendon have given in and added a 4th round to even it out.
Hey.
So evidently the deal is as follows, from my understanding of reading Australian journalists' work, which has got pretty good this year, to be honest. It looks like it's Xavier Dersma and a future 4th goes to Essendon, Brendan Zerk-Thatcher finds his new home at Essendon Football Club. That pot.
Fucking hell. Between Mackie and Dodo, jeez. I'm a principled man. I want my future 8th round pick.
I'm a man of integrity. God damn it. I want to pass with my own pick. It's going to be interesting. We'll wait for that confirmation, though, because Cal Toomey, who I do respect with everything that is me, has reported it, he could be wrong and there could be another pick swap. But, I mean, it appears that's what Dodo wanted. You know what? Dodo's like, you know when, I don't know if anyone has this experience, but, sometimes you look after your mate's kid and you realise...
D'Ambrosio has also been traded.
Who?
Massimo D'Ambrosio has been traded to Hawthorn for pick 61 and a future 4th. Hey!
Can I just say that was the trade that we had?
Yep. We've had a lot of these trades, Pom.
Okay,
God.
So, we would... I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? So, Xavier Dersma and a future 3rd, Essendon.
Let's talk about quickly, because I'm going to go in a second, but let's talk quickly about Essendon have brought in, 4 players who all improve their best 22, and I'm still not that impressed. I'm happy for them that they got the players that they wanted. I don't think we're going to be looking back in a couple of years going, oh, thank God they got Ben Mackay, Jade Gresham, Dersma, and Todd Goldstein. Maybe I'll be wrong. And maybe I just hate Essendon.
You know what, though? When I look at Essendon's trade period, I just feel like it's a team that's panicking.
Dersma heads to Essendon, Zerk-Thatcher, pick 73, and 2 future 4ths head to the Power. Hey.
Where did you see that?
Cal Toomey just tweeted it.
Just messaged you. Yeah. That's like Doug has that thing. So those tuning in at home, I'll start making this pick 73 and 2 future 4ths. Okay. It appears that Zerk-Thatcher's got a new hub. So, I mean, is that does anyone else feel like that's a good deal? Like, for me, I look at that deal and I agree with you. I feel like they've got a lot of good players if they were a top 8 side, is my initial read. If they had finished 8th last year, I would say, yeah, this is brilliant. They have got a good bit of business. But I just feel like they need more.
Yeah, I don't know. I think their team's... They've improved in the 4 positions, right? So they've improved on Phillips. They've improved on, I don't know, whatever spud they had on the wing. They've improved on like a Snelling with a Gresham, and they've improved on Zerk-Thatcher with Ben Mackay. Like, there is incremental improvements there. I just don't think it's enough to move the needle. I don't know. I don't want to just talk about the salary. They're paying a shitload of money for these guys to come over as well. But you got to do that to get free agents. So I understand it. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just the rest of the list that it just doesn't quite do it for me.
Mate, I agree with you. I just feel, I feel like it's one of them deals that I just feel like you could have got a little bit better deal. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like you could have just done a bit more with it. Do you know what I mean? I just look at their trade period. I just feel like they would have probably been better going hard in the draft.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just not high on I'm high on a lot of players at Essendon. I'm just not necessarily high on the list as a whole or how they play.
And what was the other deal that you mentioned, Dog? What did Massimo finally end up for?
He went for pick 61 and a future 4th.
So pick 61 and a future 4th. So obviously they've gone in there. Very interesting deals there. I love Massimo though, and I think Hawthorn have absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, again, Hawthorn have done very well. whether he's best 20 or 2 or not, you'd assume they're selling him on being best 22. But D'Ambrosio's a solid depth player who has some upside and some really quality skills in that he's fast and he can kick. And if you're that or you're tall, you're wanted in the AFL.
I feel like Kai has nailed this. And I also would say, I even feel like their midfielders are copied and pasted. It's almost like they've copied and pasted every position on the ground and just bought in extra players that are identical to the players that they once had.
Pretty much.
Well, I mean, Kaltumi's reporting that is it for trade period. There is nothing in the back end. So, I mean, we will be back tomorrow to recap the clubs.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, chat, I can't thank you enough. You've been absolutely amazing during this trade week. Me and Lekdog have enjoyed ourselves. We can't thank you enough, though, for your wonderful comments, your questions, and everything. Much love, chat. Look after yourselves. We'll see you tomorrow.
Peace.